Here's some good news. After all these years, author Robert Greene has finally given a late admission to the fact that his books are, in all actuality, passive aggression disguised as disrespect to ancient kings like Louis XIV or Machiavelli de Medici, people who lived centuries ago, and he admits it in his recent interview. Another great thing that he's doing is in this recommended video is he's starting to go over the stuff in his the bibliography featured in his first book from 1998, and I have that right here. So here's his first book, The 48 Laws, and on like the first page it shows bibliography, and the book that he discusses here is The Rise and Fall of Ancient Greece. I don't see it over here. The History of the Peloponnesian War by Thucydides from 1954. That's a similar themed one. There's also Makers of Rome. Oh, here it is. The Rise and Fall of Athens, 9 Greek Lives by Plutarch, 1960. But it was actually written in like the 1st century, almost 2,000 years ago. So the idea of barely disguised aggression is talked about in his book, The 33 Strategies of War, and it's number 32, second to last. Dominate while seeming to submit, the passive aggression strategy. I'll go ahead and read a paragraph of it, and I'm going to switch over. Let me just show the admission real quick, and shout out to Joey, Brian. Brian and his book. What these are Robert Greene's gone on a promotional video blog and podcast tour. Here's his new book right here. I haven't even caught up on his second to most recent book, about natural law, called The Laws of Nature. And so this is from less than a week ago, I think, October 28th. And what else? I mentioned R.G.H. Speedwagon because right here at this point, Brian mentions he wanted to buy a 1969 VW, that's Volkswagen Beetle, and so I made a joke about REO's Volkswagen, and I hope that's in the background. It's in the background here. I wouldn't even be able to name one of their songs. Okay, maybe I would be able to name one of those, or two of those. I don't know. So those are the songs that R.G.H. Speedwagon sings. Okay, let me get to the part. So I did a similar thing. The first job that I actually enjoyed was delivery driving at age 16. I ended up getting a new car at 18. It was new to me, even though it was a 1992 Honda Accord. That I ended up getting in a wreck. So here, he just mentioned Greece. Brian mentioned Greece right here, very briefly, and that's that is that book that Robert Greene goes over here in this video from a year ago. So he's finally starting to dig through the bibliography of what books inspired that, and he's getting to that admission over here. Let's see what point. I'll just skip 30 seconds into it. So he talks about his horrible bosses. That's a movie, right here. And he disguised his aggression, aka passive aggression, the 32nd strategy of the 33 Strategies of War book. I was going to show the cover, but forget it. And so what he did was he put them completely disguised as kings like Louis XIV or Machiavelli de Medici. Is the phone going to crash? Here's the second time that I recorded the video. That was just a mispress. Okay, so he took his horrible bosses and completely disguised his aggression towards them by sending out disrespect to people who lived centuries ago. And that's just the idea there. Okay? That's great that he's finally admitting it. I think if we can keep up the pressure on Green, he's going to tell us who was bullying him growing up. Who he's exactly talking about, because he's been mentioning people who told him he could never be a writer and he would write books about them. He's been talking about this forever, and he says, if I could quote him, he says when he was working in Hollywood in the 80s, he had horrible bosses, and he'll never, under any circumstances, even allude to who he's actually talking about. And so consider that yearbooks were like the form of social media in the 1980s, and in the 1880s there weren't even yearbooks. And in the 1780s, America wasn't not even existing either. So, all right. So I recommend that blog. Let me switch over to 33 Strategies book in my digital library. Most of the stuff is all my own. Okay, so I'm opening up 33 Strategies over here. That's where the phone video crashed, so I'm going to dip on the camera. Well, I guess very briefly I'll show the cover again. It's the third book in the series. It might be the most important. And so I'm going to scroll down to number 32 of 33. Okay, I already read that part. In a world where political considerations are paramount, so that's what he's dissing Paramount Movie Studios. No, I'm just joking. The most effective form of aggression is the best hidden one, aggression behind a compliant, even loving exterior. Follow the passive aggression strategy. Seem to, just disguise the aggression. Right here, you have disguised your aggression enough that you can deny it. Plausible deniability. And it reminds me of a couple of things. What I mentioned in my first blog. It was supposed to be over here, so let me open up this. I'll go ahead and show the cover. I think that's exactly where I had left off. Here's the cover of the book. Okay, so let me go into the bibliography. There's two of them. There's one at the end and there's one at the beginning. This is just a one-page bibliography. So in my opinion, I'm going to dip on the camera. Here is the main book, The Craft of Power, that he's replying to from 1979, and that's a difference of 19 years when it was first published. That's the year I was born. Here's the book I just mentioned that he talks about in that 1-hour vlog called Irrationality by Plutarch. I also mentioned something about Rome. The history of the Peloponnesian War. Anyways, those were written so many centuries ago. And so this book was published in 1979, The Craft of Power. And it makes me think of words like StarCraft or something, or Minecraft. And that's a difference of 19 years. So just mathematically thinking, I was thinking it was either 21 or 19. So I'm going to double check here with 21. But in actuality, it was 19 years difference. And so you have to know who you're dealing with. That's who he was dealing with. It was the person who wrote The Craft of Power. And the first thing that the book says is, where does it say? The moral right of the authors has been asserted. So just consider the opposite of that. He's sort of declaring, he might in actuality be declaring that this author right here, R.G.H., who wrote The Craft of Power, does not have the moral authority to speak on such subjects. And of course, you know, I would agree that he does, but it's just sort of like a really highly disguised diss track in rap music. So let me check 21 real quick, and then I'll bounce back to the 33 strategies. You're trying to seem dumber. Yeah. See, what's the future of a sucker who be hating on a sucker? That's from T.I.'s What You Know. Not to be confused with What You Know About That song. And now I'm lost. Oh, the moral high ground. So here's about the opening claim of the 48 Laws is that the authors mentioned in the bibliography don't have the moral high ground to write about the topics that they're talking about because they have so much money, right? Maybe they do when they write about it and they don't have money, but once they become wealthy, their right is sort of taken away. And so that's just in my opinion, and that's all. I'm going to go ahead and end the blog. Video over.